Hey everybody, and welcome to class. Today we're going to do something really exciting. We're going to be talking about motif stitches. So first, for the beginners, I'm going to show you what a motif stitch is, and I'm just going to do some kind of wacky shape there. And if you go here over on the right and you go to motif, and you can pick these designs here, which is absolutely awesome, and it's going to fill your design with it. And there's quite a few other things you can do with them. You can make them bigger, smaller, move them around, the whole bit. But that's how it looks, and that is really cute. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make our own motif stitches. And there's a lot of things you can do with them. One of the ones I showed you, you can do a monogram letter A and fill the A with more letter A's, which sounds kind of weird, but if you look at it, it's pretty cool. So where do you find this? Okay, you go up to here and it's under User Editors. The keyboard shortcut is Control-Alt-U. Of course, I never use them, but there it is. Okay, and this is pattern stitches, which we're going to do another time. This is where we want to be, but I just wanted to show you, we're also going to make our own borders, which is really cute. One of my favorite ones in here is the rope, which they show. It's awesome. So let's go back to what we're doing today, creating our motif stitches. So here we are, and we're going to slide this over. This is the space that you have to work in, and we want to remember to click over here to motifs. Okay, so this background is just a helpful image if you want to freehand it, and that's what we're going to start off with because it's really easy, because I just want to show you how it works. This white point is your start, and this point here is your end point, and they have to be even or else they're not going to match. Also, the key thing to remember to this one is it's one movement. There's no jumps. There's no anything. So it has to start here and finish here and do whatever in between. So there's a little bit of working around it. So the other thing is here you can make it bigger and smaller. Sorry, it doesn't go any bigger. You can make the area bigger or smaller. I just leave it on bigger because we're going to do the full thing. So over here, make sure you're not on outlines. Make sure you're on motifs. And this is what we have so far. This is the line. Now you can only do 5 of them. But they turn out pretty cool, and we're gonna show you how to do it, and you can save them and try different ones and play around with it. We're also going to bring in a picture and do it on the picture, but for now let's try this one. So again, this is your start point, this is your end point. They don't have to stay on the line. This is the middle line, but they do have to be equal or else it's not going to work. So how do we do this? You click on the line and that's going to add a point. So let's put the point here. There's no curves, by the way. And you can see here that would be your motif. Up on the right here, that would be your motif. So we're going to continue. We're going to bring it back to the center, I guess. And then here, we're going to bring it up here and carefully place it. Add another one, bring it back to the center. And you can see that our motif on the right hand side is taking shape. And that's basically all there is to it, except for you have to remember the rules of it. So there, so you could leave it like that, but look how it looks. We want to keep doing. So we're just kind of making, you know, a quick and easy star thing. The other thing I'd be careful is right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and working on more coming back into the center point. So remember how that's going to stitch. It's going to go from here to here, back, 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 back. So there's going to be a lot of points stitching in the middle. So you want to just be careful of that. And other than this first part, oh, see what I did there? I clicked and I made a mess. So I added another point. So we've got to fix that one and drag it over. So now we have this kind of star thing. And if you want to add more, you just add a few more to it and you try to keep it straight. I clicked incorrectly and I made an extra point and dragged it all the way over, and we don't want to do that. That's what kind of makes a confusing mess of it. See, I just did it again. So you really have to just take your time and think about what you're doing. I'm having serious mouse problems today. It must be the rain. But anyways, you're getting the idea of how to do that. So then that's a half star. So you can see how it's going to stitch. We do have a lot of penetration points. So depending on what you're doing, that you got to be wary of that. You don't want, 15 or 20 stitches in the middle. That might rip your material and cause some issue. So that's basically what it is. And you can, move the stitches around. You see, I'm just grabbing points. Obviously, this doesn't make sense, but I'm just showing you can move stuff around and it still keeps the first and the last point, and that's how it connects. Now, that doesn't look very nice, but you're getting the idea, right? So it's just a single line that you're adding points to and changing it around. You can, do a curve around. You can come up with some really groovy things. You just have to be careful where you're clicking. So activate this, then click, that sort of thing. So anyways, all right. So that's a bit of a mess. You can keep clicking all the way around and make something really weird. So the next thing we're going to do, let's cancel that. Let's go back up again to objects. Let's go to user editors and let's go to motif, click on motif. So over here, this is what we're going to do. You can watch it stitch out too. We can do that on the next good one. It seems to come over there, but I always just slide it back so I can see what I'm doing. So this is open. Now what you can do is add a picture. And of course, don't do anything super complicated because it's a little bit tricky to do. And we're talking about a small area and a lot of single stitches. So you want to keep it simple. Do play around with it, of course, because you can figure out a lot of things doing it. Do play around, but just remember, if you have too many stitch points in one spot, it's not going to be the greatest. So why don't we import a picture? And we go to my desktop, and we're going to start something easy. We're going to start with a star. The other thing to remember is that it only wants BMP files. So you can, if you have a JPEG, it won't read it. It only wants BMP files. If you look, I flip down, it's only BMP. You can convert your design online or something like that, but it's just a single outline. Now I created these. We're going to attach these in the video so you can play around with them. I just simply created them in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and saved them as a BMP. So let's go ahead and bring that in. Now we have a groovy outline. So we still have our circle kind of halo. Again, make sure you're on motif. And let's start plotting our stitches. Now, for now, I'm going to leave the start point where it is. And eventually we're going to move it up here. The only thing to remember, if you look at the little corner here, if you leave it like that, they're not going to connect because the next one is stitching right here and it's going to be a jump or a mess. So what we're going to do then is we're going to put both up here so they're exactly equal. Now we have a straight line. It's just a little above. So all you have to do then is carefully place your points. Now I'm just left clicking and placing them. Now this one's a little out, so don't go over the line. It brought the picture in just a little bit out. Whoops. Yeah, it's not that I'm not good at mousing. It's just that my mousing skills are terrible today. It's the mouse again. So this is your end point. Now we don't want to move the end point and make it around because we got to figure out how to do it. So we're going to do a little bit of pulling around to do it, right? So that one's not right. Whoops. See, I'm making a mess. That I should have pulled. And we're going to have to backtrack on it a little bit. I didn't do that right, and I'm clicking and I'm making more points. So it's really easy to get confused. I got a little confused, but we're going to fix it here. So this is what you have to do. I did click madly so you can see. Don't get frustrated. Just think about what you're doing. Starting here, 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 here. We don't want to use that end point yet, right? Because we need that to be at the end. So we could, pull it up here so we can see what we're doing. And so we don't accidentally click on it. That might work. You just really have to remember to move it back. So far, this is coming along. Add another here. But you see how I sorted that out? So try not to get frustrated. When you click, it looks like a mess, but it really isn't. It really isn't. So I'm just adding points and moving it, keeping my end point, in mind of what we're doing. So we've got that, and if you look here in the motif, that doesn't look quite right. It's a star, but not really. So you can either backtrack and make the bottom of it thicker, or you can just keep going, depending on which way you like it. You really, unless you absolutely have to, you don't want stitches going through it because it's going to ruin what you're doing. So the last stitch is right here, and that matches up. Now look at our picture. Now we have a perfect star. That's perfect. Now what you can do, if you look down here to the right, this is what this is. I'm going to explain each part here. That's what this is. If you look, let me make it bigger. If you're looking at the bottom row to where they're starting, you can put a shift on it. So if you want the stars to line up that way, you can do that. If you want to put it back, I kind of like the way it was. You can put it back. Whoops. You can go either way. So you can move them to the right. You can move them to the left. Let's call this, of course, star. And we're just going to click, okay, I guess we could watch it stitch out. I didn't do that before. Let's watch it stitch out. Yeah, it's a little too quick. It shows you the steps it's taking, so you make sure everything's in the right order. Okay, that wasn't much. Let's go, okay. So let's make just a shape. So place a point down. I picked the closed, filled. What are we going to do? A rectangle? Sure, why not? Let's do a rectangle. Let's click on motif. It opens up this drop down menu, and you go up, and there's our stars that we, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to do something. Ooh, did you catch that? It's not going to work. 2 elements. Now I have my generate stitches up, and there's our stars. Look at that. And we created that ourselves, and I think it looks awesome. And if you move them bigger or smaller, the stars stay in there and they're cut off nicely. It sure makes it easy to do. So let's watch this one stitch out, just because it's cool how it does it. See, half stars there to make the line. Awesome. It's a quick stitch and it looks really nice. So you could put this star motif in a star and it would look really awesome. Just remember, a little bit of these motifs go a long way. You don't want to do a whole design. Chances are you don't want to do a whole design filled with motif stitches. It looks cool, but I think anyways, just a little bit goes a long way. Be nice for a background or a quilt background. There's so many things you can do with it. So that's cool. That was, you know, a little bit complicated. I made a mess, and I'm going to keep doing it because it's kind of hard to do. Let's go on to something a little more difficult. So let's go up to Objects. Let's go up to User Editors again. Click on Motif, and I slide it over because I find that irritating. And now we're going to keep our stars because I like them. And we're going to switch to number 2, and let's bring in our picture. So import image, and we're going to do the title picture there, the little letter A. And this is a little more complicated, and we are going to have a line across, but let's do it anyways, and so you can see easy from complicated. So again, we're going to start. This is our start and end point. We might decide to move them later. So we're going to place a point there. Let's pull it up to here. And the circle is just a guideline. You don't have to worry about that. It's not really in ours. Let's bring it down, and we're going to put a couple in here because we don't have curved lines. You can't worry about too much detail because remember, these are pretty small. So we don't want a ton of detail. We also don't want to go outside of the line. So be careful between this line here is your limit. My picture seems to be going a little bit bigger. However, no big deal. So I'm just clicking, keeping in mind where my end point is. I might put an extra there. Again, we don't want too many points. We don't want to, it doesn't really matter if the curves are really good or not, because again, they're pretty small, and that's why they don't even incorporate the curve option, because you don't really need it. A couple extra points won't hurt, but you don't want 10 million of them either. Okay, so we're almost done the outside of the A. There we go. and we're back up to pretty much the beginning. Oops, see, I didn't do that right. I'm gonna go back there and add another point because I didn't quite get it on. So now what we're doing, this is our last point here. Another thing we can do actually to get it right is move it back. Simply, again, remember your order. Make sure everything overlaps. You can zoom in if you want. Now here's the problem of the inside of the A. You could leave it like this. If you look in the little picture, if you look at here, it's not 100% an A. So there's no way we can go without a line across. It's just not, you have to. There's no jump stitches or anything like that. So we're going to have to go across. And there's a couple ways you can do it. I mean, this is just how I'm doing it. And you can have the line across there. See, now it dips down. That doesn't look the greatest. So you know what we could do? We could move our endpoints down just a little bit so it matches up. And so the line across the bottom, let's remove this one because remember I clicked that in. And there we go. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can look up here. See, and we don't have it on because there is another stitch in there. I pulled the wrong one. So again, keep looking at your pictures. There we go. Keep looking at these pictures and you can see. And I would advise until you get really, 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 really good at it, not to move your start and end points around, just because we want them to match up perfectly and you have a nice perfect line across. So that looks pretty good. That seems to be a tiny bit off. Do you see? I'll zoom in a bit so you can see. We need to move this down a smidgen. Not much. Not much. There, that looks better. And then don't go mad clicking. You can delete as well. So all I did for deleting is right click and delete. And now we have our letter A. Isn't that awesome? But you see it is a little bit fiddly to get them to match up. That's a tiny bit off, but that looks perfect. So we're going to leave it at that. And there's probably an extra few points in here, but I think it's okay. So let's call this letter, because I plan on doing a few more letters, letter A, and save it. I don't think I want to adjust anything, but you can play around with it. But for now, let's just leave it. And let's go right click. Let's go to parameters, and it should be in there, and it is. Yay! And look at our letter A. Let's watch this one generate stitches. Let's watch this one stitch out. I love how it does half. I think that's awesome. You couldn't set that up like that if you tried. I think the line across the middle leaves a little bit to be desired, but there's not much you can do if you have an inside fill shape. I still think you get generally the idea that it's a letter A. And I did make the lines perfectly across so you can see the importance of doing that, why that is so important. And they look all good, and it's one stitch, no stopping, no anything, straight through, no color changes, no jumps, and that's why you have to match up your start and end points perfectly. Like I said, you can move them, but be very careful moving them because you can see it wouldn't look the greatest if they were off even a little bit. It wouldn't look good at all. Awesome. So what I did for the cover picture, really easy. Let me delete that. So right click, delete, is that I brought in my picture, so image, import, and I used the same picture that I created the motif from, which I thought was a really groovy way of doing it. So it's the same thing, same BMP file, Embird likes it, and it's a big letter A, which I'm not going to worry about size. And what we want to do is just simply make an outline. And that's what I'm doing right here. Click, click. Now remember, we're back in real Embird, so we have these delightful curve points, so we can make this. As usual, I'm just doing it quickly. You guys can take your time and place your points properly and make everything match and look amazing. I will fiddle around with it a little bit. Oh, activate the last point. So click on, there we go. Put it up here. So this is the same thing that we made it from, which is great. And actually, I did this wrong, but we're going to fix it. There we go. Awesome. Generate. Now I did that as an outline, and I really want that as a fill stitch because you can't do the motif stitches without a fill. So create fill from outline. There we go. Thank you. And click off. Actually, we want that back on. Now we're going to cut the A part out. So let's cut that out. And there we go. And we're going to change the color too, just to make it look even better. Generate. That looks perfect. Thinking. There we go. It's quite big. That's why it's doing it. But that's okay for what we need to do today. So that is, we still have our outline, which we need. So we're going to right click and go to parameters, and I'm on the outline, and I want that a nice fat satin stitch. Apply. Yeah, we can't really see it. So what are we going to do here for colors? Let's do, how about a nice bright red? And then the inside, now that we have it set up, we're going to right click and we're going to go to parameters, and we're going to go to motif, and we're going to go up here and we're going to pick our letter A, and we're going to apply, and our A is going to be filled up with A's. And isn't that cool? I just think it's so awesome. It's a nice way to do a monogram, I think, anyways. I think that would look good. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller because we're thinking about it. And see what I did there? I grabbed one without the other. So we want to undo, and we need to undo again and go up here, and this is, I find, the easier way, and make sure you get everything. Now I have both. Now I'm going to make it smaller, and there we go. We can get rid of our picture because it's just simply in my way. So delete image, and there we go. And now of course we have to generate the stitches so we can see it, and now it looks better. Why don't we make, do you want to make these ones red? And we also want to put it in a different order. So I'm going to go here, and that was a right click, and I dragged insert after because we want all the edges of the motifs to be covered up. Now you can see the A's are quite small in there, and that's fine. But doesn't that look great? That was just a few clicks. That would need to be satin stitched too. That's a few clicks and it's done. So let's go back into parameters and let's play around with our letter A a little bit. This is the shift I was talking about. So you can shift them around a little bit. Don't forget to click apply and you can see what you're doing. Do you see them shift? That doesn't apply a whole lot to the letter A, but other designs it will. Let's put that back because I want it back. So this is the, you can scale them up. If you want bigger letter A's, let's go to a whopping 130, 30% more, and see what it does. See, a little bit bigger. So you can size them as you want, and I think that's really cool too. And this is, oops, I clicked on the wrong one. Oh, well, I guess I can do it. What do we put it at? 10. Click, apply, and see it moves, that makes them a little bit bigger and moves them apart. Now there's a little space between them. That's all that does. So you can play around with it quite a bit and get the exact right look that you want inside. I don't know if you can do wave on this one. Let's try. How cool is that? Yes, you can do wave. Actually, I think I knew that. I just didn't read it off my paper. But, oh well, we'll pretend it's a brilliant moment. So look what you can do with these. Look at this. Very cool. So you can add dimension to your motif stitches that you're creating. I think that's absolutely awesome. What's this one here? Oh yeah, this is the other part. I did this on another one, but I just want to show you. You can add more than one motif with a wave inside a design. So rows and columns. So we can pick all of them for the first part. And that would be really cool if you had more than one initial. So if you were doing, you know, a really fancy monogram, maybe you'd want to split this and you would put their name, big letter A, or their last name of a family, but you wanted to put some initials in here. This is how you would do it. So rows are this way, columns are this way. So let me show you how that looks. It's going to add another row. And it's going to think about it a minute. See how that looks? That is so cool. So if you had another initial, so click up to 2. Now that's a lot. I don't have another initial or anything even close to initial, but we could pick something groovy. Could do circles and then still have the waves so you can apply. Yeah, isn't that cool? So an A, I actually really like that one. Not so much on the wave, but we can, you know, we can always add another A. Let's see how that looks. A with a wave. So we could do 2 rows of that. But see how you can play around with it? The possibilities are absolutely endless, especially when you are figuring it out and creating them yourselves. Now, I think that looks really cool. I think with adding stuff in, though, I don't want the wave. It just kind of changes it too much. However, you can see how much fun that is. But doesn't that look neat? I think people will look at this depending on the size. And remember, of course, don't make them too small. But depending on the size, people will look at it and it'll take them to a few minutes to realize that there's A's inside the A's. And you can, of course, these are circles. You could create like a swirly that goes in between quickly and easily and really make something awesome. So let's try one more just to make sure you guys get it. The A was pretty complicated and we had to figure out where we were going to put our lines across. So let's try a flower. Now on this flower one that I did, I didn't like the inside of it, but you can play around. You have all the files to work with. So again, I just went up to objects and I picked users, editors, and I want to be on motif stitches and I want to be here on motifs, and everything else is the same. And let's bring in another picture. If you can work off the picture they give you, that's great. Not me. And again, faced with the same thing, start and end points. For now, we're going to leave them where they are. And by the way, if you move them outside here, it doesn't look like anything happened, but that's going to be crossing over. So your first stitch is going to be here. So you want to make sure this outside faint circle that they keep, you want to make sure your start and end points match up right there. So again, we don't have a curve, so we're going to have to add a few points, and we're going to be careful to not add too many points. We do need one right there. Let's bring it down kind of low. Click. So the first half is easy. The second half you have to think a little bit more about, and I'm just gonna keep going on this. You can already see by looking to the right that it's starting to, it doesn't look like a flower yet, but it looks like something. And again, you don't have to be too particular, because remember, we're making something that's pretty small and the curves won't show up anyways. So don't worry about it too much. And if you look at the picture, you can see even what I'm doing here, that there are enough. Now what I'm going to do is pull out my last guide. I find that helps me not get confused as to what I'm doing, because you saw me there, I pulled from the wrong ones. Now we want to start pulling from here because we're keeping it in one line. There's no breaks, and it helps keep the last point separate so you're not clicking on the wrong spot. I've done a lot of these, and I really find it's the easiest way to keep your lines straight. And once you start clicking and you click on the wrong thing and you're adding points, and it puts an extra step in it, and it gets really confusing really quickly. So we don't want to do that. So Let's look in here. Other than the line going through it, that is looking like a cute little flower motif. So we're going to check it out. Now, we can leave it going through like that. That might be okay. I would kind of like that point, but let's try and add some more points and see what you think. I didn't really like it, but maybe you guys will. It's a lot of stitching for a little area. However, if you make the motifs a little bit bigger, I guess it would look okay. There is still going to be a line going across whether we like it or not. There's no way to jump around. But see how moving your stop point helps you make sure you are picking the right ones. And it really helps speed up, but don't rush any of this. Doing it this way, we've got the line going all the way through. And if you don't want that, make sure you're clicking on the right line, of course. We can bring this line up and bring it down. And we don't want it sticking out. Bring it here. And now we do have lines going through the flower, but they're not going through the center of it. So let's call this one flower. And I think that looks pretty good. You can see it's not perfect, but it sure looks pretty good over here. You can, you know, zoom in a little bit and check it out. But I like to look at it, you know, not up too close because I want to make sure I'm not putting, you know, 10 nodes here because you really don't want that. Oops, I clicked by mistake. There we go, but that's okay. And make sure you move your final point. Let's get rid of that one. So right click, delete. Move your final point to just on this faded line here. So we're going to call it flower. We can play around with the shift. I don't know. It might look kind of cool. No, I just tend to leave them at 0 because I like how they look like that. But if you want to shift them, go ahead. That's how you do it. You can change the size and everything. I still have a tendency to leave it at this point. So let's go in, right click, parameters, and let's drop down and let's see. We have flower, and it actually looks pretty cool. There is our flower. Now you can see, let's zoom in here. You can look at it. Right up close you can see there's square edges, but you can also see there's quite a bit of points here. So, you know, be careful using it. I think this one would work out great. What's our size here? But yeah, this one's big enough. But if you were to make, let's check this out, just as a warning, if you were going to make it that small, and again, I pulled one and not the other, but that's okay. Let's generate this one, and look, it didn't make the flowers, you know, that much smaller, but it's still, this is kind of messed up here, and there's jump stitches around and there's big spaces. So make sure you have a decent amount of space for doing them. We can actually get rid of this. Right click, delete, delete, delete. And that, everybody, is how you make your own motif stitches. The rules for them are, remember, simple. Simple designs. Letters will generally work very well, and they look awesome, and I should have come up with something OML for that because I think that would be cute, doing a letter, probably a letter M and something like that. So you can just come up with some great ideas for it because it really is easy. Everyone thinks it's so complicated. It's a little bit of trial and error. And again, I find if you pull the last line part out, it works a lot easier and you don't get confused. I find it helps a lot. So user editor, so what I'm talking about is if you move your last one out of the way, you know, you do remember to put it back. But look what we created in such a short time. So you could do, what sort of things could you do? Well, just about everything, anything you can think of. I've done a wiener dog motif, which is really cute, that you put in a wiener dog design, or for quilting. Stars, letters, simple flowers. I've seen people do boats, and they do the boat and the wave. the wave that's already there. You can do, you know, stars, sunshine, anything you can think of, and try it and stitch it out. And you can tell if you have too many points, and you can tell how it's going to look. Like I said, the flower's kind of pushing it because it's hard to make the circles, so maybe stick to straight lines would be better. And remember, you can maneuver things around. You can, you know, mix and match your motif stitches. You don't just have to stick to one. Let's try that again because that is awesome. And it's over here up on the right. And this is our regular motif. And then you go here and you can do quite a few different ones and you will be really surprised. So let's do 3. So flower, what are we going to pick to go with a flower? This one's pretty intense. And what else are we going to pick? Well, that one might be cool. So let's do apply. It's going to change it up. But see how that looks? It's so easy to do. And that is a heck of a design in there. That looks really, really cool. And you can change the rows or columns if you want. But I think right there, that is a cool inside design for something. You know what else? That would be great for applique. If you had applique fabric that wasn't too busy underneath it, and this was outlined properly, I deleted it. I think that would look really cool in, you know, a matching color or a completely opposite color. So there's so many things you can do with it. It seems everyone's like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's so difficult. It's really easy if you remember start and stop points and how to do it properly. Little bit of trial and error, but just remember, pull your point out and make sure it makes sense and make sure you don't have too many points in one spot. And if you're worried about it, just stitch out something little and you can see. Let's look this on the density map. Let's see the flowers. Remember I was saying there's a lot of stitch points, and it's true. We're not in the danger zone yet, but look, these guys don't even show up. So of course, part of our regular embroidery rules, check out your density map, watch it stitch out, only because it's fun. Look at that go. And it's so cool how it lays it out. See, I'm not too fond of the line across, but I think it looks okay. And see, it stitches it all out. That was a nice addition. I kind of like that. Look at how that one spins. So have fun with your motif stitches. Make them, try them, check them out, come up with brilliant out-of-the-box ideas to do your motif stitches. They are absolutely fantastic, light and airy drawings. Really not that hard to do. Not at all. It's really not that hard to do, and it can add that extra wow factor to just about any design. I love watching these guys stitch. Oh yeah, a little bit of overlap there. So anyways, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I can't wait to see what motif stitches you guys are going to make. So of course, join our Facebook group, Embird Happy Digitizing, and you can post your homework. And your homework is to come up with a new motif stitch. Do the 3 that I've given you, but come up with your own and try